Good morning to everyone watching at home and who may watch it later on YouTube. Today is April 28th, 2026, Committee of the Whole meeting of the Municipality of Jasper. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the Municipality of Jasper respectively acknowledges that the Municipality of Jasper is on Treaty 6 and 8 territories, as well as the Jasper House Métis District. This land is the traditional territory, meeting ground, gathering place, traveling route, and home of the Danze, Aseniwichi Niha, Aseniwichi Winiwak, Nehe Umak, Anesh Nebe, Sequepmak, Eithwichi Stebe, the Mountain Métis, and the Métis. I'd like to proceed to item 2, the additions to the agenda. Are there any additions from Council to the agenda this morning? Seeing, sorry, Mayor Ireland.
Not so much an addition, but when we get to agenda item 6, correspondence, there is an item that I will share with Council that is not on the agenda specifically.
Thank you for that, Mayor Ireland. We'll proceed to item 3, the approval of the agenda from the April 28th, 2026 Committee of a Whole agenda. Councillor Melnick. All in favor? Any discussion? Approved? Thank you. Item 4, April 14th, 2026, meeting of the whole, meeting minutes, business arising from the minutes, please. Any business arising? Seeing none, thank you. Item 5, delegations. I'm seeing an empty gallery this morning, so we'll assume that there will be no delegations presenting to Council this morning. Item 6, correspondence. Mayor Ireland.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette. And as I indicated, it's not specifically on the agenda. Something that I received earlier this month, and I chose, for reasons which I hope will become apparent momentarily, to withhold it for a bit, but now is the opportune time to reveal that I received a letter from Brenda Orchard, the president of the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators, so a national group to which our CAO and some key administrative staff belong, similar to FCM, but at the administrative level. The letter reminds us that there is a long service recognition award program of the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators. It is dedicated to honoring and celebrating the dedication of members to public service and to municipal management, a cornerstone priority of the association. The awards are based on the duration of full-time paid employment in municipal government, specifically in management roles such as Chief Administrative Officer or those reporting directly to them. And recognition, among other things, is granted at the 10-year mark and subsequently in 5-year intervals. And this year, it is their privilege, and they've asked that we assist in recognizing and acknowledging the commitment of our own Director of Community Development, Director Christopher Reed, for his remarkable 10 years of service in municipal government management roles. Christopher's dedication to his role has undoubtedly contributed to the advancement of our municipality, and we are pleased to join the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators in recognizing his wonderful achievements in benefit of our community. He does receive a certificate of recognition, which has been mailed to him directly, and I'm sure that this would have all been kept quiet, but for the fact that they saw fit to send me a letter, and with Christopher being present personally before us today, I thought it was an opportune time to share this piece of correspondence. So our congratulations to Director Reid for 10 years of service in a role reporting directly to a CAO, and it's very pleasing to know that CAMA has seen the value of your contribution, and we share in that and give you our accolades in front of the community which you serve so well. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you for that, Mayor Island. And indeed, I would echo the same sentiments. Congratulations, Director Reid. I think it's well deserved, and we look forward to having you here for another maybe 20. That would be something. Okay, well, moving on to item 7, new business. Item 7.1, Library and Cultural Center subleases. Christopher Reid, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette, and thank you, Mayor Ireland and Council. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that sentiment very much. Of course, now I'm flustered and ready to make many mistakes on pronunciation as we go through this item. The item before you is the Library and Cultural Center subleases, and the committee recommendation is that committee receive the report for information. Alternatively, committee, of course, can request further information from administration on this topic at a future date. The background, November 18th, Council passed a motion that said to direct administration to enter into discussions with the Jasper Artists Guild regarding potential sublease renewal and return with recommendations to future committee of the whole. The subleases for both the Jasper Artists Guild and Habitat for the Arts end at the same period here in June coming up. And so in discussion, the Jasper Library and Cultural Center is home to several community groups, as well as the town's library, as we all know. The Artist Guild operates the gallery and artist space on a sublease, and the Habitat for the Arts operates the artist studio, classroom, performance space, other spaces upstairs, and delivers programs to the community as well. Through presentations to Council, these groups have made clear requests for their sublease renewals, and Council has received these presentations and referred the renewals to administration. Council has, by motions, budget discussions, and approvals, as well as strategic priorities, clearly outlined your vision for service and level of municipal support for the subleasees in this facility. And administration is able to work with these subleasees to ensure the will of Council will be met. Administration is in active discussions with the groups and does not foresee any barriers to completing sublease renewals as requested. If necessary, this item would only come back to Council if administration and either or both of the sublessees are unable to agree on terms moving forward. There, of course, are very good connections to your strategic priorities about recreation, cultural opportunities and spaces and relationships that advance the community's interest. And the presence of multiple community serving groups within the Library and Cultural Center supports inclusive programming that reflects a range of backgrounds, abilities, and interests, and so definitely helps to meet your inclusion priorities. And lease payments as per past subleases and scheduled increases have been included in the 2026 operational budget. Any changes to future subleases would be included in future budget presentations. And of course, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Director Reid. Any questions for Director Reid on the topic of Library Cultural Center subleases? Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette, and through you to Director Reid. When we renew the subleases, are these annual or are they a longer term?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette, through to Councillor Melnick. See, I told you I was flustered. These have been 5-year leases in the past, and we expect to aim for that depending on successful negotiations. But that would be our target. We don't really want to be renegotiating these leases that often. We want everyone to have stability and certainty.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions for Director Reid? Councillor Waxer.
Sorry, not a question, but a I know in the past we've had concerns around advertising and availability to the public, and coming into the building, I saw some really imaginative and fun kind of advertisements for upcoming events, and that made me feel very pleased and happy for the community that it's a tremendous addition to community life.
Thank you for that, Councillor Waxer. Any other questions for the director? Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette. And not a question, but just echoing Councillor Waxer's sentiments. I think this is a good, strong arrangement that supports community priorities year round, maximizes the value of that municipal asset.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other council questions? Okay. Would anyone care to make the motion that we receive the report for information? Councillor Waxer. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item 7.2, SKIJORING update. CEO Given.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Frechette. Council will remember that back in January, the Committee of the Whole received a presentation from James Purdy, organizer with SKIJORING for MS. And at that time, the committee provided direction to administration to work with other interested local organizations to investigate the opportunity to host an event. Following the January meeting, the issue was discussed at the Jasper Partnership Initiative, where it was raised that Tourism Jasper actually has an opportunity and a process for evaluating and advancing new events that align with local priorities and industry priorities. So since then, Tourism Jasper representatives have met with the potential event organizer in February. They reviewed Tourism Jasper's events and festivals funding programs. So they actually have funding to support new festivals and events. They outlined the application requirements, valuation criteria, and the proponent was invited to submit an application or to put forward a proposal. As of April, as of writing the report, no application's been received by Tourism Jasper. They continue to be in contact, make themselves available, but they have not yet heard back. Should the event organizers apply or make an application, and if Tourism Jasper chooses to support the event, municipal administration is happy to work with Tourism Jasper in providing the support from the municipality in terms of using municipal space and any other operations. We do that quite frequently. The Jasper in January event and other Tourism Jasper organized events, we have a good history of and practice of working with them to facilitate as needed. So administration doesn't need any further direction from council to support the event should one be proposed and come forward. So this is essentially an update report from administration to highlight that we stand ready to support an event if it comes forward. At this time, it doesn't appear that the organizer has taken any further steps. And if they do, the first step would be through that Tourism Jasper process around the festivals and events funding program that they already have established. So it really is just a update for information. This item has been on the outstanding items list since January. Administration's identified, the actions that have happened, and really we're waiting on other parties, third parties, if they choose to make any steps. So administration recommends that council receives this report for information.
Thank you. CEO Given, any questions for CEO Given regarding the SKIJORING update? Mayor Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette, through you to CAO Given. Just the very last paragraph on the first page of the report speaks to viability, and I would just like confirmation that however viability is determined by an outside agency, that would be independent viability of the event. That is independent of municipal sponsorship dollars. I mean, we might contribute indirectly through road closures or something else, but I just want confirmed on the record that that when there is an assessment of viability, it would be on the basis of an event either independently viable or viable through the funding available through the Tourism Jasper Fund.
Deputy Mayor Frechette for Mayor Ireland. I think the word viable is not explicitly financially viable. The event organizer said that they would need external financial support. Tourism Jasper has a process to provide external financial support to make events functional. So if there was ever a request for municipal financial support, that would need to come to a public committee meeting or a public council meeting, and council would need to make an independent decision on that. At this time, there's no request. And a lot of the events that Tourism Jasper chooses to support through their process are explicitly Tourism Jasper putting money into the event to make it happen, buying the event. So there's a process that's available for that. Many of those that Tourism Jasper does support don't come to the municipality for financial support. We provide that in-kind support through municipal resources.
Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Frechette, and thank you for the report CAO given. I support this approach. I appreciate that we're using established processes through Tourism Jasper. For those who may be listening and not familiar, could you explain briefly what the Jasper Partnership Initiative is and what role it plays in conversations like this?
Sure. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Frechette, for Councillor Hall. So the Jasper Partnership Initiative is an informal table where a number of different organizations can discuss issues that impact the community of Jasper relative to our tourism economy or other issues. Participants regularly include the municipality, Parks Canada, Tourism Jasper, the Chamber of Commerce, the Hotel and Lodging Association, and there are some representatives from major attractions. The body doesn't have any decision-making authority. It's more of a coordinating and conversation space. And so items like this where, hey, here's an idea, how does that fit, can be sort of raised, and then anybody that has a comment or a perspective on it can share. So it really is a sharing table. It is not a decision, explicitly not a decision-making table. And that's why you'll see in the report, it doesn't say that the Jasper Partnership Initiative decided this or that about SKIJORING. It was raised there as, hey, this came up through the municipal channels. And because Tourism Jasper is at the table, they were able to say, well, we have a process, send it this way.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Consrud.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette. And being we have Director Reed here, I thought perhaps I could ask him a question. Would it be possible for private horse owners and skiers and ski jumpers to use some of the municipalities' areas, like say Centennial Park, to take a horse out there, like just privately, and maybe build a little jump? And as everybody will know, I was quite fond of that idea of SKIJORING, and it's unfortunate that the party applying never got their act together. But like, I'd be really interested in like seeing that happen, even at a small scale.
Deputy Mayor Frechette, through to Councillor Consrud, certainly with an application, we could respond. On face value, it will be a challenge to find a place where that kind of use doesn't affect the other uses already in designated park spaces. But, you know, absolutely, if there was a group that came forward that said, we're interested in this, is there a way the municipality can accommodate? We'd work with them to see if there is a way. I can't guarantee anything, but we would certainly work with them. In the same way we're working hard to find a way to put a pilot park project, we have to find the space to do that successfully. And so we would work with them for sure.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Director Reed. Any other questions for the director regarding the SKIJORING event? Seeing none, would any councillor care to make a motion to receive the information? Councillor Hall. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 7.3, Canada Day. Director Reid.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette and all of council. So the item before you is Canada Day, and the recommendation is that committee direct administration to support the planning and delivery of a 2026 Canada Day events to the extent possible using existing resources. And a second recommendation that committee direct administration to bring forward a report to discuss future municipal involvement in organizing Canada Day events prior to the 2027 budget deliberations. Alternatively, of course, committee can direct administration maintain the municipality's current level of effort in the planning and delivery of Canada Day events. The background is that Canada Day events in Jasper have typically usually been organized by the community. In the past, a formal Canada Day committee handled planning, and after that committee disbanded, a variety of different volunteer and community groups have been involved in the event each year. Historically, the municipality has supported these efforts by dedicating internal staff resources, participating in the planning, providing facilities and parks, and hosting the annual pancake breakfast along with council members. Each year, the municipality budgets just over $4,000 to support the pancake breakfast. More recently, Jasper Culture and Events has been leading the planning, working with local groups and volunteers. Currently, there is no community group, however, responsible for this year, 2026. After contacting past organizers, the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Jasper, administration found that no group is willing or able to take on this leadership role. In the past, the municipality's involvement was to provide general support for community-led events, programming while only directly delivering the pancake breakfast. Because there appears to be no community group willing or able to lead Canada Day, organizing the municipality needs to decide what role it will take. The municipality can either take lead or continue to support the community-led effort if one emerges. If we lead the event, we would be responsible for planning, delivering, or co-delivering all Canada Day activities. This would or could ensure consistent programming, clear accountability, and alignment with municipal priorities. It would also allow the municipality to manage logistics, risks, and resources directly. Additionally, this approach would allow the municipality a unique opportunity to act on council's priorities outlined in the Indigenous Relations Framework. If the municipality takes a support role, it will continue providing facilities, staff assistance, and coordination while a community group leads the event. This approach supports community involvement and follows past practice. However, since no group is currently available, the uncertainty could lead to fewer events or no events at all unless a new organizing group is formed. Given the short amount of lead time before Canada Day 2026, administration is recommending that committee support the municipality taking a more active role in this year's celebration using only existing resources as a stopgap measure. At this time, administration believes we have the resources required to act as the lead organizer of a status quo or similar 2026 Canada Day to deliver what has come to be expected of this event. The approach is not sustainable over the long term as the staff support required will draw resources from other council priorities. Administration is further recommending that a deeper review of the municipality's role should take place before the 2027 budget discussions, of course, using what we learn in 2026 to inform that report. Strategic relevance, leverage recreational cultural opportunities and spaces to increase community connection and nurture relationships that advance community's interests. This event also is well reflected in our inclusion work. The planning and delivery of Canada Day events provides an opportunity to reduce barriers to participation and ensure activities are accessible and welcoming to a wide range of community members, including those at risk of exclusion. And you can see that financially we do have that small amount for Canada Day, and then we do have some funding for Indigenous performances as well, which we're intended to be part of the day anyway. And I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Director Reid. Any questions for Director Reid regarding the Canada Day issue? Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette, and through you to Director Reid. In the discussion portion, a reference is made to Jasper Cultural and Events, and I'm not familiar with that organization. That's not Jasper Event Management, is it?
Deputy Mayor Frechette, through to Councillor Melnick, it is in a sense. That is the nonprofit arm for charitable events, pardon me, of that organization.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Councillor Consrup.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette. Through to you, Director Reed. Who used to quarterback this thing?
So prior to what we would call the most modern iteration, there were a dedicated group of community volunteers that ran it. They would organize themselves. They would get a chair. Often there would be council representation in some form or another, but it was a group of community volunteers that did it.
And they're just like not interested, or have they expressed interest but not enough support? Do you know, or how does that work? Or if the community takes this over, which I mean, I'm in support of, because I think Canada Day is an important day, but is there the option if they don't have enough people and volunteers that they could help us still?
Thanks,
Given.
thanks, Deputy Mayor Frechette. Maybe I'll address that because I think it really was COVID was the big change. So there was a external Canada Day committee, as Director Reed described, of community volunteers that would come together in a formal organization, but that was separate from the municipality. When I arrived in 2021, that had sort of fallen apart due to COVID, and there were, over the last few years, a number of sort of stopgap efforts of trying to ensure that something was happening. Councillor Hall can speak, well, you might speak to some of those, but there hasn't been any sustainable, regular organizing body that has sort of reestablished following COVID. And so, as Director Reed said, looking at this upcoming year, we're in that situation again. This is a reoccurring thing since probably 2021, where we're getting close to Canada Day, and there's a number of questions of what's going to happen, who's doing what, is anybody doing anything? And we know that that's a priority for the community. So being proactive, Director Reed wanted to bring this to council to get a little bit of direction. And ideally, there would be external resources and community volunteers that would, put their hand up to say that they wanted to lead this. That was the practice in Jasper for a long time. Administration saying, well, for 2026, we want to make sure that we don't, as a community, drop the ball. And so the municipality on a limited basis can step in to make sure 2026 happens okay. But we're really checking with council to say, do you think the municipality should do that on a regular basis going forward, or should it be something else? And Director Reed's recommendation, as he said, is let's help out this year, come back afterwards with a more fulsome report that says, what would it look like for the municipality to take a role? How much might that cost? What other alternatives are available? And the community will always be an important part. Community volunteers will always be an important part. It's just about who's the actual organizing, the formal organizing body.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Frechette. And yes, that is correct. Prior to COVID, there was a group that ran Canada Day for probably 25 years, a very long time, and they stepped down just prior to COVID, so 2019. And then I was on a new committee that was going to run Canada Day, but COVID happened, so it sort of shut that down for a few years. And I'm very much in support of the municipality taking a lead in this. And to be honest, Canada Day in Jasper has been something I've wrestled with for quite some time, like how we celebrate and what we're celebrating and who feels included in that story. I think this gives us an opportunity to do something more meaningful. And with no community group stepping forward, I see this not just as a logistical decision, but as a chance to align the event with our values, particularly our commitment to truth and reconciliation and the direction set in our Indigenous Relations Framework and also our Council strategic priorities. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls on all levels of government, including municipalities, to advance reconciliation through education, public dialogue, and meaningful partnerships like this. And I think this is a really tangible way for us to do that. By taking a leadership role, we can ensure that Indigenous voices and perspectives and partnerships are not just included, but are central to how the day is shaped. I think this is really meaningful work. It's a big opportunity to strengthen relationships with Indigenous partners, to reflect a more honest and inclusive story of Jasper, and to continue moving forward on the calls to action in a way that is visible to our community and to our visitors. So I'm very much in support of us taking this on.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other questions, opinions? Mayor Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette, through you to Director Reed. I am interested in what I see as a bit of a disconnect between the really operative sentence in the discussion part of the document and the actual proposed recommendation. And if I take that backwards, the recommendation is to support, which typically does not translate to lead, but the operative part of the discussion certainly suggests that we should lead. And so if I am right, that the intent is that for the interim, because of the nature of this event and the fact that if it fails to materialize this year, it might be gone forever. I mean, it's harder to pick something up entirely than to keep it. So if the intent is to lead, provide some leadership for the event to occur in 2026, basically as a replication of what has happened in last year and in last years, and then reassess in the following months and see what we can come back with. I am fully supportive of that. I just want to make sure that if we pass a motion as recommended, that in fact is what we have said, because they don't seem to say the same thing.
Deputy Mayor Frechette, through to the ever eagle-eyed Mayor Ireland. I think your sentiment is true. In our minds, when we say support, planning, and delivery, we meant lead, and we should have just said lead. I appreciate your pointing that out, and I would be thrilled to hear council make that motion in the way that's far more clear of what we're going to do. I appreciate that.
Councillor Consrid.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette. And I agree with that wording. And I also think it's important to really involve like the community as much as we can, like really reach out. I find there's a lot of community members that want to pitch in and volunteer and stuff. And it's the hardest part getting ready, but having their input as well. But I do think that we should be in charge, but really involve the community on something like the Canada Day. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Waxer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette. I just wanted to acknowledge Councillor Hall's thoughtful connecting of Truth and Reconciliation to Canada Day, and I appreciate her comments.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. Any further comments, questions for Director Reed? Mayor Ireland.
In the absence of any other comments from councillors, I do have a motion that I am prepared to make, and that is that committee direct administration to take the lead in planning and delivering a status quo 2026 Canada Day event to the extent possible using existing resources, and that committee direct administration to bring forward a report to discuss future municipal involvement in organizing Canada Day events prior to the 2027 budget discussions.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Frechette. And a question for Mayor Ireland. Why the use of the term status quo? Because I think we can actually enhance this with the resources we have to, status quo to me is a party with beer gardens and some music.
I use that phrase because that is the essence of the recommendation. And as I read the report with existing resources, with municipal leadership, they could produce an event similar to what has been had, but to take the time to meaningfully adopt a different approach, I think would, as I read the report, strain the resources. Here we are, almost at the 1st of May, 2 months to put this together. I read the report as indicating, yeah, we have the resources to mimic what we've done, but to expect us to come back with something significantly different would be a challenge. And that is why we have the second part of the motion to look at. And as you said in your remarks, to make a meaningful difference, I don't think it's fair to anyone to expect that to be kind of slapped together in 2 months. I think it would take more thought and organization than the time available permits. And that is why I use the word status quo, because it is taken directly from that operative sentence in the report provided by administration.
Councillor Hall for a follow-up.
I wonder if the motion would have the same effect if that was taken out, because I do see, okay, so we had beer gardens last year. Maybe we take some of that funding and put it towards something else. When I think of Canada Day and Jasper moving forward, I don't see a party. I see meaningful engagement with Indigenous partners and a beautiful event on a lawn space. The Legion right across the street, bars around town will host parties. And I wonder if that term status quo is taken out. Is there still enough funding or direction with this motion? And is this $4,152 all we have for funding, or was there any additional funding for this event?
Director Reid.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette, through to Councillor Hall and all of Council. Great discussion. One of the things that when we said status quo, we meant there'd be Canada Day, and some of the things will have to be scaled down. And Councillor Hall, you point out the beer gardens. That would not be a focus for us because that takes a lot. And so the status quo discussion from our perspective was there would be Canada Day. It would look very similar to Canada Day. It would be the event that keeps the ball in the air, but it wouldn't necessarily be exactly the same or the same scale. And so this discussion is much appreciated from us to be able to clarify what we can and cannot do or would and would not produce.
Thank you, Director Reid. Mayor Ireland.
Having heard that, and I appreciate now we're into debate and administration can't enter into debate, but recognizing that there are limitations and recognizing also from those comments from Director Reid that the status quo doesn't mean an exact replication. It, as he eloquently put it, keeping the ball in the air. I am quite happy to remove those words status quo from the motion, recognizing that administration is not here to expand the event, but to keep the event alive so we can consider how it might be produced if by the municipality in future years. So I'm quite happy to remove those words from the motion.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Councillor Consrud.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette. I'm just getting a little bit concerned now with all the different wording. I find Canada Day, in my past being here, I feel it's one of the things that a lot of the community gets to be part of the community, and council and administration and everything. It's what brings everybody together, like one of the few times, and how possibly they judge how we're doing. So, like, just getting by, in my mind, I think we should, I'd say status quo is at least our goal. And then adding some stuff, like not necessarily expensive stuff, or even if it would take a little more money. I think this is very representative of all of us. And and the community in a whole. This is like a feeling always on Canada Day that people can get excited about, you know, not only Canada, but our municipality. So, like, I'm into more than just keep it rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Consrude. Any more questions to Director Reid? Seeing none, it looks like we have a comprehensive motion before us. Yes, I was going to say possibly, Mayor Ireland, but if you would like to reread your motion with the new wording in place. Thank you.
That committee direct administration to take the lead in the planning and delivery of 2026 Canada Day events to the extent possible using existing resources, and that committee direct administration to bring forward a report to discuss future municipal involvement in organizing Canada Day events prior to the 2027 budget discussions.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item 7.4, revised water services bylaw. CEO Gibbon.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Frechette. I'm going to be joined by Mr. Michaud, the utilities and utilities manager. As council member, was just a short while ago, April 14th, that we were here with the revised water services bylaw. The existing bylaw, bylaw number 178, was last updated in 2014. So administration is bringing forward a comprehensive update to streamline the bylaw, but also to modernize the regulatory framework to ensure that it aligns with current standards, both provincially and federally, and improve a number of operational items. At the April 14th meeting, Council raised a number of questions and potential adjustments. So administration and directed administration revised the draft water services bylaw and provide some answers to questions. So we're here today to do that. You'll see attached to the package a updated version of the bylaw where we have highlighted in yellow changes or adjustments that were made since the previous version. You'll also see attached to the package a sheet that highlights the points that were raised by council, as well as the questions that were raised. So administration between Mr. Michaud and I are happy to address any of the updates or changes. I thought maybe we could do a brief discussion on some of the points where there were questions that didn't lead to necessarily a change, where council had asked a question about application or sort of the concepts, and where administration provides a little bit of discussion. Deputy Mayor Frechette, ultimately the recommendation is that committee pass the bylaw forward to council with the recommendation to give it its first two readings so that it could go to Parks Canada for certification. But Mr. Michaud and I are happy to answer any questions that council might have about what's presented in the report today. And if you'd like, I'll leave this to your direction, Mr. Chair. If you'd like, we could go through the attachment called Water Services Bylaw Committee Feedback and Questions, that table, and we can maybe we could sort of lead a discussion about where there was a question raised that didn't necessarily lead to a change or adjustment that's highlighted in the updated version of the bylaw. We're happy to take your direction.
Thank you, CEO Gibbon. Are there any questions for CEO Gibbon or Mr. Michaud regarding the revised water services bylaw in council? Mayor Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette. I thought I heard an offer from CEO Gibbon to kind of walk us through some of the changes, and I would appreciate that rather than going through line items, just the general changes and the approach that's been taken. And then I may have a couple of particular questions.
CEO Gibbon.
Sure, Deputy Mayor Frechette, happy to do that. So broadly, there are a number of areas where I think Council raised the need for additional clarity and just providing a little bit more precision in some terms. And so administration's done that in a number of places. For example, Section 3.4 with respect to shutoff notices, the previous draft highlighted that we would provide reasonable notice to the owner of a property. We've updated to add and or consumer. So noting that the occupant of a property, the consumer within the property, may not be the owner of the property necessarily. So just ensuring that that difference is made. There was a question on 6.2 and 6.3 about the previous version maybe appearing to overly limit the municipality's liability, and administrations refined that language to make it a little bit more clear that we're not, that there's some extents to which we can limit our liability and not going beyond that. 8.1.3 currently is the portion which identifies that all service installations requested by the owner or necessitated by demolition, excavation, renovations, or other work shall be paid for in full by the owner. Council raised a question of whether this created a new obligation for owners. And in fact, the answer is no. The existing bylaw already includes a similar obligation in Section 8.1. It's almost exactly the same word for word. So this passage is consistent between our 2014 bylaw and the proposed bylaw. We do provide more precision through other sections of the bylaw about where the municipality's obligation begins and ends, and where the owner's obligation begins and ends. It was not as well defined in the previous bylaw. There was a question about why the municipality would limit the number of services to a property. The proposed bylaw says that the default standard is for one service per independent unit. Administrations didn't make a change to that section because really it provides optionality to owners. If they wish, for whatever reason, to have multiple services, they can make that request. It just identifies essentially that the municipality's default approach is a single service. There were some questions about frost depth. Administrations added some more specificity to what standard we use. It's quite common for the municipality in a lot of areas that we use another municipality's design standards. We don't have an engineering department, and so we'll often use those. And I think in this case, we chose to use the City of Edmonton's design standard for frost depth calculation. So there is more specificity added there. Maybe see if there are any other highlighted major items. Bleeders, there were a couple of questions about bleeders. I know that's something that's maybe a bit specific to Jasper. The current practice has evolved over many, many years and has probably been handed off to us from Parks Canada when the municipality was created. So this bylaw is attempting to provide, again, more consistency in how that's dealt with. So we've tried to spell it out more clearly for everyone, users and administration. There was a question about the newly defined bleeder flow of 1 liter per minute. Administration is actually, and Mr. Michaud could speak to this, has actually conducted testing to confirm that that's adequate. I don't believe that there was a previous maximum flow described in the existing bylaw. So now we have a limit that we have, that we're confident will be adequate. And we also, the implication of this is that folks that have bleeders receive a credit for the flow of the bleeder on their bill. Administration's seen situations where folks may be running their bleeder to an excessive flow, which is a waste of treated water. We've seen situations where it's 10 times what was probably required, and that is a credit and billing challenge. So we've defined a maximum flow that we believe will work, and then we've applied, created a system where we can apply that credit to folks' bills. There was a question in section 11.5.3 and then 14.3 about retroactive billing adjustments and why making a limit. So the current bylaw doesn't provide good guidance for what authority administration has should a billing error or a situation arise where a consumer notes that their bills have been incorrect, or there was a mechanical error or something like that that they didn't notice. The current bylaw doesn't give administration good guidance on, well, how far back can somebody claim that they didn't know that their water was being, where the toilet was running. It's sort of the classic situation. So the proposed bylaw specifies a number of months that the administration can go back and adjust a customer billing. And this is reflective of the fact that as a consumer, you have a responsibility to be looking at your bills on a regular basis. And if you notice that something changes, wow, I can't imagine why my water usage went up so much in November and then continued in the following months, you have an obligation to check that. And so administration is providing some specifics around how far we can go back, which attempts to strike a balance between the end user's obligation to be checking their bills and the municipality's willingness to make adjustments. There was a question about why the bylaw referenced the certification standards and accuracy of the water meters as 3%. Mr. Michaud and the team identified that actually comes directly from equipment manufacturers. They certify their water meters as being accurate plus minus 3%. And so we've chosen to build that into the bylaw. There was also a question about hydrant penalties, and maybe worth a little bit of discussion here. The term hydrant in the water services bylaw is not specific to fire hydrants. I think a hydrant can be is a piece of the system that may occur in a number of different places that are not fire hydrants. So the term hydrant is not specific to fire hydrant. That aside, administration did add a $1,000 penalty for actions which cause damage to the system. So if somebody improperly operates something, there's a smaller penalty. If they cause damage to the system, there's a higher penalty. And additionally, the fire services bylaw has penalties for interference with infrastructure that's required for fire operations, which would include fire hydrants. So the term hydrant doesn't necessarily mean fire hydrant in this bylaw. A hydrant is a portion of a pipe that may be a fire hydrant, but is not necessarily. And we have other penalties in a different bylaw around fire service. So if somebody is interfering with fire hydrants, we'd be able to issue a penalty under the fire services bylaw. And then finally, there's a question about implementation. So if and when council passes this bylaw, when do these changes occur? Like, when are people obligated to start to meet the new standards within the bylaw? And in our relationship with Parks Canada, somebody will be issued a development permit. The development permit identifies an obligation for the lessee to interact with the municipality on a number of different fronts prior to the issuance of a building permit. One of the things people have to do with the municipality is enter into utility agreements. And so that would be the stage where this would come in. So if somebody has received a building permit already, they'd be under the terms of the old bylaw because we would have entered into those utility agreements. If they have received a development permit, but have not yet engaged with the municipality to enter into their utility servicing agreement, then the new bylaw would be applicable once council has passed it. So building permit stage is where if you've achieved building permit from Parks Canada, that means you've done your work with the municipality already, and this wouldn't apply to you. If people haven't yet got their building permit, then likely it would apply when council ultimately gives it to third and final reading. So council, without going line by line, I know that's already a lot of lines, but without going line by line through all the other changes that were noted, hopefully that gives you an overview of some of the other questions that were raised. And Mr. Michaud and I are happy to answer any other questions the committee might have.
Thank you, CEO Gibbon, for that comprehensive review. Any questions for either CEO Gibbon or Mr. Michaud regarding the presentation? Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette, and through you, thank you for all the work in the summary. Having read through the summary prior to the meeting and then referencing back some of the sections, I have some 2 or 3 questions. First one being about the water meters damaged by the fire. I see that was covered in here. Just out of curiosity, I think in the bylaw we talk about replacing water meters. Is there a standard to which we would have replacements? Is it every 10 years? Is it every 15 years? And if so, should it be in the bylaw? I imagine that the replacement of water meters is also, as I think I read, it is a responsibility of the municipalities. So we would probably be looking for programs to be able to purchase meters for those replacements.
Yeah, I can take that question. Deputy Mayor Frechette through to Councillor Melnick. Technology has greatly advanced in water meters in the past 20 years. The warranty accuracy of water meters in the past used to be a 10-year guaranteed warranty. Now we're seeing solid state meters, so they have no moving parts. So now they guarantee a 20-year accuracy. So this program that we're going to be starting implementing this year, our water meters are expected to last at least 20 years within that 3% range. So we're going to be looking at replacing water meters 20 years from now. So we're going to be talking 2046.
Thank you for that. And I'll go back to the work that was done here and the questions that were asked regarding the water bleeders and the depth that would be suggested based on standards from the City of Edmonton. And also referencing back to the last item that was the inflammation here. I guess the intention is prior to getting a building permit that we would try to have the water lines coming in so that a bleeder is not necessarily required.
Yep. Again, through to you. This is very dependent on location. Jasper doesn't have the same geography and topography as Edmonton, but there is service depth standards that apply across northern Alberta and southern Alberta. It is up to the builder to install at that depth. If they can't achieve that depth, there's ways to engineer it out by providing insulation around water lines. But it would ultimately be up to the developer or proponent to ensure that they do install at a proper depth.
And if I may, Deputy Mayor Frechette, without getting too far into the weeds, I saw some dates in here regarding bleeders that went from May 1st, it referred May 1st and February 1st, I believe, and I'm just trying to find that section. I just found those dates odd. My limited knowledge of bleeders is that they would normally be operated in the wintertime. Is that meant to reflect when frost generally moves down into the ground? Is that why those dates are specified that way? And I'm just trying to find the exact location in the bylaw that I saw a reference to those 2 dates. Because it did make reference also for when you can have a bleeder on and off. And that's why I was intrigued by those choice of those dates.
Deputy Mayor Frechette through to Councillor Melnick. I can't pull it up either top of my head, but those dates were where the bylaw specifies that the bleeder credit will not be applied. So we went for an exclusive date from May 1st to February 1st. Our tracking over the last 15 years shows that by February 1st, the frost in the ground hasn't reached a depth that would impact service lines. So to save water loss, we did shorten those dates quite a bit over the past few years. And as we've been tracking, we haven't had any residential freeze-ups occur prior to February 1st, unless it was somebody who negligently had their heat run out or their doors open.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that, and now I understand where those changes come from, and it connects back to my experiences here in the community. And I did have one other observation. It's really a clerical, and that was in section 2.18.5, and it is in the definitions of what a redevelopment shall mean. And the actual section there reads, includes but is not limited to the demolition and replacement of a building, infill development, or conversion of a premise to a different use. I think spell check means to say conversion instead of conversation. And I'll leave that with you.
Any further questions for Mr. Michaud or Director Reid? Mayor Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Burchett, through you to Mr. Michaud. Now I've lost my place in the document, but with respect to potential inaccuracy of meters, the meters have a warranty, but I take it that is just a warranty for replacement. If it's been inaccurate, one party or the other suffers the consequence. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
So in that provision, which I can't find, there are provisions that say an owner can request a test once a year. And if a meter is found to be inaccurate by more than 3%, there can be an adjustment for the last billing cycle, which would be 2 months. I wonder whether it's conceivable to have any sort of discretion and an opportunity for at least an appeal to the CAO. So, for example, a brand new water meter is installed. It's got nothing to do with the owner. He pays whatever charges are consistent with the meter, and it turns out after a year that the meter has been inaccurate from day one. We restrict how often the owner can challenge, and they can do all the checking to make sure their toilet is not running all the time. But if the flow is inaccurately determined, it seems to me there should at least be an opportunity for an owner to come back and say, hey, wait a minute. The municipality purchased and installed this device. I have relied on its accuracy, which has been determined to be off. Why does that cost lay with me? And so I can, if the question is an issue with running water in the dwelling, that's got nothing to do with the meter. The meter is just recording what's going on. But if the meter itself is inaccurately recording at the expense of the owner, that just seems a bit harsh from our perspective to just say, well, too bad, everything but the last billing cycle is on you.
Maybe Deputy Mayor Frechette, maybe Mr. Michaud and I will handle this one together. I'll give my perspective and then send it over to Mr. Michaud. So, Mayor Ireland, the bylaw identifies that newly installed meters need to be certified prior to going into operation. I don't remember which specific point that is, but it's up earlier. So we actually, it was quite early in the bylaw, and we changed. Actually, I could probably find it because we changed. So 11.1.3.1, the water meter and all associated appurtenances shall be subject to inspection and approval by the municipality prior to being placed in service. So essentially there is, like, when a new water meter goes in, it will be inspected and will be ensured that it's properly operating and certified. It also identifies, and sorry, 11.4.1 is actually a little bit more clear. Water meters shall be certified accurate upon installation and after repairs. So when a water meter is installed, it needs to be certified by qualified personnel approved by the municipality. So when it goes into service, before going into service, we confirm that it's operating appropriately. If at some point during, after that, the person identifies that there's a problem, then they have that right to request a retesting of their meter. And the bylaw says, no problem, we can do that. And then if the meter's found to be at fault, then there's a way to, for you to sort of claim that back. But if we find out, and I think that this is the practical reality, the vast majority of situations where somebody says, hey, my meter isn't operating properly, I think the reality is that it's probably something after the meter, something in the property that isn't operating properly, and the meter is accurately reflecting an increased water flow. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but the fact that 11.4 identifies that water meters going in need to be certified and tested and confirm that they're operating properly. So that, in terms of the exposure for the end user, I mean, it's possible that something in the next 3 months, goes. That can happen with all types of devices. And if that happened, the owner would have the ability to come forward, and we could go backwards and claim, sort of correct the problem and issue a billing credit. The limitation on the time of the billing credits really gets down to ensuring that owners understand that they have a responsibility to be looking at their bills. If you just pay your bill without actually looking at it, which we've seen situations of that, where people come back and say, well, actually, over the last 2 years, I've been paying all these bills, and I've decided now that I looked at it and they were too high compared to what I was paying 3 years ago. Well, maybe you should have raised that sometime over the course of the last 2 years, rather than waiting 2 years and just paying the bills. So this is a variable that council couldn't decide how much leeway you want to allow owners. You could say the municipality shall provide an adjustment for the last 24 months of billing, or the last 12 months of billing, or the last 18 months of billing, or the last 3, administration is fine. We just believe it's useful to have a standard identified in the bylaw for consistency. And so for administration to be able to say, this is what council's approved. So we're happy to take direction. I need to see I don't remember which point that is about the limitation of the municipalities' billing adjustments. But if council believed that one billing cycle, going back one billing cycle was not enough, you can tell us that and we can change it.
Thank you, CAO Given. The provision that I was looking at is 14.3. And so I'm only talking about that rare case where the meter itself proves to be inaccurate, despite certification, despite everything. Meters can be wrong. And, if somebody is new to the property, their only experience would be with that meter upon which everybody relies. And so I was only suggesting that, although it might be appropriate in almost all cases to only go back to the most recent billing period, there could be exceptions. And I'm just suggesting that maybe an appeal process in those rare cases where somebody would, and we want people to have reliance on the equipment that we install. But if that reliance in good faith has been wrong, and that meter has measured inaccurately since the day the person took possession of the property, it just seems harsh that they don't even get to come and say, come on, you guys, this is not fair. Because I think there could be cases where it wouldn't be fair. And so I was only suggesting a provision to allow a user, a consumer, to raise the point if they have a case on equitable grounds for going back further than one building period. Maybe we should at least listen to them.
Deputy Mayor for Mayor Ireland, administration's happy to take your direction. Being the CAO that would end up potentially facing those. So it is helpful to administration and users if there's as much clarity and as little ambiguity in a bylaw as possible. And so an appeals process, what grounds should the CAO choose to grant an appeal? The CAO's subjective feelings and opinion about what's fair and equitable, I guess, is sort of the implication of what you're suggesting, or any appeals process. And so if council wants to build in that opportunity for the CAO to apply, CAO or delegate to apply their discretion, that's something absolutely we could do. The draft as put forward here is explicitly intended to be more specific and to have less subjectivity and sort of opinion-based things. So if council wanted to add an appeals process, you could direct administration to incorporate an appeals process under Section 14, and we could likely draft something in there prior to bringing it forward to council.
Mayor Ireland.
Well, just on that point, there is an appeal process in 18.7. But that's a review of the CAO. And so I don't know whether, and that does not give very much clarity either about what the standard is, but the section is already there. And so the question is, would that apply to 14.3? Is that what I was discussing? Because the adjustment for the most recent billing period is not a decision of the CAO, right? So we have an appeal process baked in, but it is also a bit vague, I think.
Deputy Mayor for Mayor Ireland. Thank you, Mr. Chair. One, just a overall observation about the process of developing the bylaw. The previous version that was brought to council, committee of the whole on the 14th, actually did go through external legal counsel. And so I have every reason to believe that it's consistent with typical standards of similar municipal bylaws across the province. So any appeals processes are probably what you would typically see in other municipalities. I'd make an observation about 18.7, which I think you were referring to, Mayor Ireland, that it comes under the enforcement and offenses. And so it really is, I think, an appeal of a application of a penalty under the bylaw. So if somebody gets a ticket, a bylaw ticket under the water services bylaw, they may appeal that ticket. It doesn't necessarily talk about appealing any other parts of the bylaw, would be my interpretation.
Any other questions for Mr. Michaud or CEO Gibbon? Councillor Waxer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Frechette. Through you to Mr. Michaud. I was wondering whether it is possible that the opening, closing, or interfering with hydrants or valve systems is possible to occur accidentally, or is it only likely to be the result of mischief or with the intent to tamper? I asked that question because it implies in the question that it is a life safety risk. And so it would seem to me that $1,000 is low if it's really, and if it really, the $1,000 penalty is low if it actually is a life safety risk. But if it's possible that someone working on their house could do that, then, and it could be accidental, then maybe that's more in line.
Deputy Mayor Frechette to Councillor Waxer. Typically, what we have seen in the past is contractors or developers who would access those valves on their own without proper permissions. This can result in, if we have isolation zones already in place within the municipality that they're not aware of, critical infrastructure can get shut off, like the hospital or the clinic. So that's when we talk about life safety issues. We want to keep it in-house so we can have control over these and time them accordingly in conjunction with other operational isolations we have in place.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Michaud. Any further questions, discussions from Mr. Michaud or CEO Given? Having seen none, any councillor like to make the motion to receive this as, to recommend the council give first and second reading? Anybody care to make that motion, please? Councillor Concert. All in favor? Sorry.
Or just on clarity, it seems to me we should have a motion for first reading and then a motion for second reading. I would just turn to CAO, given it seems to me that that is required process, but if we can do them both in one, that's fine.
Deputy Mayor Frechette from Mayor Island. Yeah, in terms of process, we're at committee today, and so this is does committee choose to send this forward to council? And so that can be done, I think, in a single motion. At the council table, we'll need independent motions for each reading.
Thank you for the clarity, CEO Given. So we will take the vote again. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? That is carried. Item 8, a motion action list. I see no, oh, pardon me, CEO Given.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Frechette. Just a couple of updates. You'll note that we're recommending that the Indigenous Relations Framework be deferred to July 2026. That's a change to the target date. It's the very first item in the list. Council will know that we had some engagement with Indigenous partners last week. That was just last week. So administration is working. We have a number of other events. And so we just would like a little bit more time to pull that together before coming back to council. And then the other items that I would suggest could be deleted would be the Jasper Artists Guild item from November 18th. Director Reed presented a report about that lease today. The SKIJORING event, I presented a report with an update on that. And then the Water Services Bylaw, which we just finished. And so those three items I would recommend could come off, and we could have the update to the administration would recommend the update to the Indigenous Relations Framework target date. So those would be the recommended updates. If committee was in agreement, you could make a motion to pass the motion action list with the updates as noted.
Thank you, CEO Given. Any discussion on the updates? Any councillor care to make the motion? Councillor Waxer? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item 9, councillor upcoming meetings. Any upcoming meetings from councillors to reports? Councillor Hall?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Frechette. I will be attending a Recovery Advisory Committee meeting on Monday the 4th, and I think most of us will be at an intergovernmental meeting on the 5th in the morning.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Waxer.
This is not upcoming, but I would just like to mention that I attended the Evergreens Foundation employee recognition event on Friday evening, and 2 Jasper employees at Alpine Summit were acknowledged there for long service. I will be attending the event tomorrow regarding Indigenous relations, and I will also be attending the Recovery Advisory Committee on a week from now.
Thank you, Councillor Waxer. Any other councillors have any reports or upcoming meetings? I do have a couple myself. I'll be attending the Trans-Canada Highway meeting on May 1st via Zoom on May 1st. And I have the Community in Bloom meeting day after tomorrow at the Operations Center. And I'll be meeting with the Good Stony Leadership meeting tomorrow morning as well. Item 10, upcoming events. We will have the Wildfire Resiliency Information Session at 7 p.m. April 29th at the Jasper Activity Center. The National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, and the 2S LGBTQ+1. Also National Day of Awareness, and People MMI1WG2S, also known as a Red Dress Day, on May 5th. We have the Emergency Preparedness Week, May 3rd to 9th. And the Emergency Preparedness Open House, 3 till 7 p.m., May 6th at the Fire Hall. We have the Community Fire Smart Day, May 9th. And we have the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Annual Conference in Edmonton, June 4th to 7th. Item 11. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to also point out that the 5th annual Uplift Festival starts on Friday, the 1st, and runs for 10 days.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hall. So now item 11. Any councillor care to make the motion? Councillor Hall. Councillor Hall, motion to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you all. Have a pleasant rest of the day, everyone. Thank you.